Thank you, Anna, and welcome everyone to this final thesis presentation seminar given by Mr. I-Chang. But before we start, I want to say that Daura Nuna Nanawal, we are on Nanawal land, and I would like to pay my respects to the Nanawal and Namri elders and the current people whose land was never ceded. I-Chang is a PhD student in Reed, but he has come with very prestigious fellowships. I remember him coming from New York, first writing to me, and I was kind of slightly pleasantly surprised to have a young man wanting to work on gender and masculinities, and young man from Taiwan wanting to work in Papua New Guinea, and that too on a topic that was not so popular even 5 years ago. And I found that he had done a fair amount of work, field work, visits before, so he had prepared himself for the hard slog. And I remember when he first came here, he still had a slight American accent. He would say last and fast, but that one soon wore off. And that, I think his MPhil was in New York. And since then, he has received quite a few prestigious fellowships from Taiwan government. As you know very well, these are highly competitive. He has presented in several conferences and published as well. And I feel that these are quite big achievements for a young PhD student, career path student. So, and he's working on a topic that is highly controversial, and he has truly blossomed into an excellent scholar in the last few years. So it has been a very good journey for me as well, just to see him flourish into this today's good scholar. So very pleased to be chairing this session today, and I welcome you all to attend this seminar. I-Chang, all yours. You can start now.
Okay, thank you, Kuntala. So now I will share my screen with my PowerPoint. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Including the notes.
Yes, now I will. Now you can see my PowerPoint. Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. Hey, am I mute or you can
We can hear
me?
you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining my presentation. I want to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodian of the land on which we met today and paying my respect to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people here today. My thesis studies changing work relations and the worker's identity in a Chinese-owned and managed refinery, the Ramunico mine in Medan Province, Papua New Guinea. My journey of researching this project dates back to a summer in 2014. A week before leaving a displaced village in the highland, a workers' strike happened, and this experience animated my concern with work relations in the mine. During the second visit to another impact village in the coastal area in 2017, a landowner told me that people did not strike against the Chinese, but the Papua New Guinean government as well. This viewpoint will represent the Papua New Guinea government's failure in delivering services after granting the operating license to the Chinese company. This example also indicates a unique state engagement in the mining industry in Papua New Guinea, which is the absent presence of the state. Under this situation, Papua New Guinean workers have learned to claim benefits and rights through forming the trade union. Notably, the involvement of the trade union represents an important industrial relations that originated during the Australian administration in the 1960s. After this transformation, foreign mining companies, including the Chinese company, must respond to Papua New Guinean workers' needs because local workers' rights to unionization are under the Papua New Guinean state's support. To demonstrate how they dealt with the trade union and local workers, Chinese interlocutors use the Chinese term 磨合, which means friction and cooperation, to demonstrate different stages of work relations. For me, 磨合 captures the changing work relations and the unique partnership between two parties. Here are two maps regarding my fieldwork site. The map on the left-hand side shows three major sections in this mine: Kubukari Mine, Nickel Slurry Pipeline, and the Basamuk Refinery. The construction of the refinery was complete in late 2012, and the production has started afterwards. There are 17 departments in the refinery with around 900 employees, including 1/3 of Chinese expatriates and 2/3 of Papua New Guinea employees. During my field work, I lived in a Duman village shown on the map on the right-hand side because I was declined access to the refinery. Duman is a fantastic fieldwork site because of its proximity to the refinery and the Duman people's previous engagement in the coconut plantation in Basamuk during the Australian administration. My previous observations motivate me to embark on a thesis based on 4 research questions. First, how do Chinese and Papua New Guinean miners learn to work together in a post-colonial context where values and rules developed during the Australian administration are still in effect? Second, what kinds of values and practices developed during the Australian administration affect and reshape Papua New Guinean employees and Chinese management's understanding of work and behavior? Third, what kinds of values and practices based on subsistence farming affect work relations between two parties? Fourth, how do intercultural work experiences affect two groups of workers, reconfiguration of gender identities and including masculinities? My project uses 2 primary research methods: its ethnography and textual and archival sources. The first one comprises in-depth interviews, survey questionnaire, and participant observation. The second comprises archival research and collecting images. Additionally, positionality was an ongoing issue throughout my fieldwork because of Taiwanese identity and conflicts of interest among landowners. During dealing with this difficulty, I also realized why working with local Papua New Guinea employees is critical for the Chinese company to manage the refinery. There are 7 chapters in my thesis, and each of them touches upon different aspects of compromise by focusing on different workplaces in the refinery. Previously, I have demonstrated the introduction chapter. Now I will start to illustrate the remaining 6 chapters. As demonstrated above, mining operations in Papua New Guinea are featured as the absent presence of the state and the critical role played by the trade union. This background differs from scholars' conversations with Michael Burawoy's hegemonic despotic factory regime and the consent theories. Reviewing these studies, I find that a hegemonic concern is consent. Consent. A hegemonic consent is manufactured in China, where the Chinese state government plays a high-profile role in managing work relations and dealing with workplace disputes. Under the strong state intervention, the trade union in China also becomes inactive and an alliance of employers. I argue that another theoretical framework is needed because of different situations in Papua New Guinea, and my advocacy corresponds to Burawoy's standpoint in a review article based on Qinghuang's study. Reading these publications, I found that a situation that is less studied, which is Chinese multinational mining companies' willingness to negotiate, concede, and compromise to local labors and local state government in Zambia. Considering the Chinese term 磨合 mentioned above, combined with this finding, I realized that a reconciled employment relations based on compromising occurs in the refinery. Therefore, I proposed a compromise theory in my thesis based on 2 levels. On a group level, a compromise theory tells us how work relations change from conflicts to a situation similar to the stalemate on the battlefield based on negotiation and concession. On the individual level, a compromise theory shows how workers' gender identities are enacted through negotiating with previous understanding and concede to the new context. By using compromise as a theoretical framework, now I will show you 4 scenarios that a Papua New Guinean worker would experience when working in a refinery, including employment relations, a male-dominated work situation, men doing gender atypical jobs, and the new ways of becoming a good man. To become a refinery worker, a Papua New Guinea employee must participate in formal training based on Australian standards and on-the-job training with Chinese supervisors. This chapter selects the high-pressure AC leach department because it was the availability of this processing method that determined the commencement of this mine. By working with Chinese supervisors, Papua New Guinea employees also learn how to operate machines and Chinese work ethics. In addition, Papua New Guinea employees also need to learn a workplace pidgin that is a mixture of talk pidgin, Chinese, English, and hand signals. Describing the process as working actions and the following actions. Some of them said that they this way of learning is similar to how they learn in the village by observing, while others said that they feel like they are talking like children because they have to simplify the sentences and then repeat some keywords. For the Chinese managers, they also need to learn to negotiate with and concede to foreign expatriates, including for Australian managers employed by the Canadian shareholder when working in this department. Because Chinese state-owned enterprise concentrates on a top-down managerial system in which supervisors play a critical role in managing workplace safety, while the Australian system focuses more on offering workers enough training so they can evaluate the work situation and to decide whether it is safe to work. In addition, an Australian interlocutor says the absence of the Papua New Guinea stay in a refinery has created a situation that the company needs to self-govern to make sure that the operation complies with Papua New Guinean occupational health and safety regulations. Because of the decreasing numbers of foreign expatriates in the refinery, Papua New Guinean managers' role becomes more and more critical, especially those with Chinese university education. Based on these findings, we can find that Papua New Guinean managers' structural power is rising, so is Papua New Guinean workers' associational power in forming the trade union. These two factors also push the Chinese management to negotiate and concede because they are unfamiliar with rules and regulations in Papua New Guinea. Therefore, I argue that current employment relations in a refinery are similar to Eric Wright's definition of the negative compromise, where employment relations is like a stalemate on the battlefield because two parties realized they need to negotiate and concede rather than continuing struggling with each other. The second scenario is a male-dominated work situation. This chapter selects the limestone department because the adjacent limestone deposit was one primary reason that the company built the refinery in Basamuk. Another reason that this chapter selects the limestone department is because the limestone landscape tells us how local people understand their relationships with the land and how the changing relationships with the land is related to the social changes that people are experiencing. Interview findings with workers in the limestone department show that this department is male-dominated because employees in two workplaces are all male. They also said that actually they think women can do most of their jobs except for only two situations, which are opening the rusty valves and cleaning falling limestone from the conveyor belt. Facing this contradiction, I realized that physical reasons or mining machinery are not primary reason that causing that caused the male domination in this department. There are something there are some other reasons that cause the male domination in this department. To find the reason, I interviewed a Papua New Guinea manager, and he says if they could have more contracts regarding jobs such as cleaning the environment or doing housekeeping in the office, they could hire more local women. To me, his response reflects a gender barrier ideology that differs from the gender division of labor in Duman, where men and women know each other's work and cooperate. Previous studies have also shown that this type of gender barrier ideology that excludes women from working in the mining industry originated from previous economic activity such as coconut plantation during the Australian administration. Therefore, I argue that the manager's gender barrier ideology represents a remained ideological impact caused by previous coconut plantation in Basamuk. Based on these findings, I argue that the male domination of jobs in the limestone department and the overall refinery show that this is a place of compromise where the mining company's geotechnical considerations and local managers' gender barrier ideology co-determined women's exclusion and subordination. This case also shows that we should locate the operation of Chinese multinational mining projects in a historical context where previous economic activities' ideological impact continue to affect the current organization of work. And this is a picture of the limestone processing plant in the refinery. I was able to take this photo because it's very close to the road. Usually I travel to the local market, or otherwise I won't be able to access the work area. Okay, now the third scenario is men doing gender atypical jobs, such as working in a mining mess. This chapter selects the mining mess because footwork is unique case to study miners changing identities and the ethnic relations in the workplace. Before working in a mess, local men participate in food preparation and learn cultural values, including the importance of social bonds, sharing, and cooperation. However, after working in a mining mess, they enter a different situation where jobs are assigned according to various knowledge and skills, and the women's higher percentage of employment in the catering service attendants reflects a gender barrier ideology demonstrated in the previous chapter. Notably, this gender barrier ideology affects not only women's job opportunities, but also men's feelings about doing jobs that are considered women's work. For instance, a butcher says initially he felt okay when cleaning or serve with other Papua New Guinean women because this is similar to the situation in the village. However, after being stared by other men, Papua New Guinean men, who consider these jobs as women's work and did not want to help them, he started to feel challenging, although he eventually convinced himself that this is still a job that allowed him to make money. Importantly, cleaning and serving are also those types of jobs that affect these butchers' understanding of work relations with Chinese. He says he disliked a terminated Chinese chef who ordered local employees to clean while he sat and played his smartphone. For the current Chinese chef, the butcher said, this one assists local employees and they respect them, so they became good friends. Another example is a catering service attendant. Similar to the butcher, he is also concerned with doing women's work. Additionally, he says he is he is also worried about eating particular type of food, for instance, the frozen food or canned meat or food prepared by unmarried girls because some taboos he learned from male initiation. Interestingly, when talking about working with Chinese, he uses the food again to demonstrate how he became friends with Papua New Guinean Chinese in Rabaul by visiting their houses, cooking and eating together, and sharing stories. Based on these two cases, I argue that workers' gender compromises during doing gender atypical jobs include two contradictory ideologies. During compromising, their considerations about jobs and food in the mess also intersect with work relations with Chinese employees. Lastly, this case also shows that indigenous culture continue to affect Papua New Guinea employees of understanding of work and work relation with Chinese employees in the refinery. These are two pictures regarding the food service area and the dining room in the township mess. Finally, the fourth scenario is workers changing identity. This chapter selects the confined workplace as an example because this is where many local young men first work with Chinese supervisors. For Papua New Guinea employees, they said it is essential to wear personal protective equipment properly to work in the confined space because so they can stay active and continue working to impress Chinese supervisors. They also said that working hard is important to be recognized and promoted to be a team leader by Chinese supervisors, although initially they found that Chinese understanding of hard work contrasts with Papua New Guinea managers' emphasis on workplace safety. Chinese supervisors also have similar learning experiences. For instance, a senior Chinese supervisor said he learned the importance of respecting local employees and understanding their culture other than expecting them to follow the orders, similar to what workers would do in China. A junior Chinese employee also said he learned that local employees are less work-oriented because they are still subsistence farmers. Therefore, he could not expect them to be self-motivated as workers in China or other countries. Importantly, these cross-cultural learning experiences also motivated workers' new understanding of becoming a good man. For Papua New Guinea employees, in addition to indigenous culture of indigenous understanding of becoming a good man, new work-related factors such as make money, completing higher education, or having a job are also considered important to become a good man. Although they encounter some challenges against indigenous cultural values when working in a confined workplace, they can still distinguish work situations from the situation in the village and adapt to the new situation. They also said that the senior Chinese supervisor discussed above are recognized as a good plumman according to local culture. For Chinese employees, they expressed that new factors such as learning foreign language, respecting local culture, and thinking outside the box they gained after working with Papua New Guinea employees are becoming important to become a 成功 successful man, which is a kind of good man in Chinese society. They also said that these new understanding are not in contrast with previous factors that determine a 成功 man, successful man in Chinese society. These cases show that the previous understanding and a new understanding of either becoming a good man or a 成功 man are not in a replaced or marginalized relations. Instead, different factors are motivated according to the context where the man is situated in relation to others. This case also shows that Chinese expatriates no longer cultural outsiders to local community after years of working together. Based on these findings, we can find that employment relations in the refinery is not a control or resistance binary. Instead, control and resistance relations only reflect the early stage of conflict. After years of learning and working together, two parties learn to negotiate and concede because they are interdependent and cannot proceed without the other. The interdependence between the two parties also shows that Chinese and Papua New Guinea miners are both subjects and actors, and this dual identity is reflected in the work relations, cultural and gender values, and the relation with the past and present. Additionally, we can find that compromises demonstrated in my thesis are multi-sided in relation to various workplaces and the remained ideological effect caused by previous economic activities. Finally, we can see that mine workers' compromises are multidimensional with respect to power relations, ethnic relations, and gender relations because of different kinds of gendered labor processes. It is therefore critical to examine diverse intersectionalities between different dimensions in other Chinese overseas mines, especially regarding women's subordination. Finally, I want to talk about policy recommendations based on my findings. First, as we have seen, the settlement of workplace issues and the cause of women's exclusion are not merely determined by the Chinese management. Instead, I suggest that these issues are better solved by locating the refinery or this mine in a historical development of the mining industry in Papua New Guinea. Second, although the Papua New Guinean state is absent from the operation of the mine, its institution role is still important, so it's critical to update the Mining Act in Papua New Guinea to ensure workers' benefits, safety, and women's job opportunities. Third, it's essential to work with male landowners and the managers to change their gender barrier ideology to increase women's job opportunities. Finally, it is also vital to work with Chinese employees regarding indigenous culture because some misunderstandings in the workplace are caused by different cultural values. It is also crucial for the Chinese management to play an active role in employing local women, especially in those areas that are considered men's fields. This is my presentation today. Thanks for your listening and looking forward to your questions and ideas.
Oh, thank you, I-Chang. Thank you for an excellent presentation. And I'm really glad that you stayed within time. And I was really impressed by the way you have connected the ideas of place, sites and time in your work and showed that how identities of both Chinese and Papua New Guinean workers change within the context of a mining, project. And yeah, I think in the last slide, you talked about policy recommendations. They're more like implications in my mind, that I think your work has well and truly taken the, gender and mining discussions a little bit forward. And instead of policy recommendations, it would probably be a good idea to use scholarly and implications or policy implications. I think implications of this work. Anyway, that those were my comments. And now let me open the floor for comments. You can post your comments on the chat group or raise your hand. You have already got some congratulations from Beck Colvin, who says that well done, impressive work and great insights. Thank you for talking us through your project. And then you have also got a congratulatory note from Professor Sango Mahanti, who says, thanks, I-Chang, for, she has to leave for another commitment, but it was a great presentation. So let me ask Amanda now to ask you questions.
Yeah, thanks. I was just wondering if you could give us an example, I-Chang, of you mentioned the compromise, conflicts, and compromises. Could you give us maybe an example from your field that you learned from your field work?
Example, do you mean my own experiences or workers' experiences? Okay.
I guess I meant the workers, a conflict at the something workplace related that was resolved through the compromise and negotiation that you were telling us about.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for these questions. And these questions can be answered by two ways. For the Papua New Guinean workers, for instance, when they first work with Chinese employees, because previously they have the understanding taught by Papua New Guinean managers, which is the importance of following the safety rules, no matter what the situation is. But when they work with Chinese employees, they realize that they need to adapt to the Chinese management's understanding of 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 the balance between continuous work and the and the managing the safety situations in the workplace. So for the Papua New Guinea workers, they have to be they have this previous understanding given by the Papua New Guinea managers, but they also gain new understanding by working with and assisting Chinese employees. So in their minds or in their minds and their work performance are in a process of negotiation. Yes, and this negotiation should be also considered in the context where which I mean what types of Chinese employees they are working with, and also what types of like machines they are using. Because for instance, the talk piecing, the workplace pigeon can also be differs from different workplaces, and and actually using the learning how to use the workplace pigeon is also a kind of compromise, I would say, for some Papua New Guinea employees, especially those who complete university or college education, because for them to speak the workplace pigeon, they have to speak like children, which for them is a kind of compromise. Although they still think that these jobs help them to learn some job skills and help them to work properly, find job opportunities in other mines. Yes, maybe maybe I could end here and for more
And
questions.
yeah. Other questions, please, or comments? Yes, Colin. Unmute yourself.
Unmuted, yes, right, okay. Yeah, it seems from what you say, I-Chang, that this is a more male-dominated mining project than most of the other big mining projects in Papua New Guinea, where you find, say, at Oktedi, women in quite senior roles, both technical and managerial. And I wonder whether you have an explanation for this distinctively male bias in the Ramu project by comparison with other projects. It can't presumably be a matter of government policy, so it must have evolved out of the interaction between the Chinese and the Papua New Guinean men involved in the project.
Yes, thank you for calling for this very important and very important questions for my project. And actually, this is also another key information that I collect from Papua New Guinean interlocutors when I try to ask them their ideas regarding why it's male dominated in Papua New Guinea, in the Ramunico mine or in the refinery, because some of them said that one of the reasons that they think women can do most of their jobs is based on their previous work experiences in the Hidden Valley mine in Morro Bay, in which they observe women operate heavy machine, having equipment and operating the giant mining machines. So that that's why I was let's so based on these conversations and the findings, contradictory findings, which pushes me to wonder why in Papua New Guinea, in the Ramunico and in the refinery, why it is so male dominated. So that's why I think, yeah, the situation will be. I think this is also related to my 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 argument regarding the Chinese management. Why I think that rather than arguing that they are introducing the home practice to Papua New Guinea, actually they are compromised to the ideology in the refinery area, which means oh sorry, how do I say it? um how do it becomes a compromise between the Chinese management and the male landowners, and this compromise creates the hyper masculine work environment in the refinery. Yeah, if if I can say it in this way, which means actually the Chinese company should play a more significant, a more active role in promoting women's job opportunities, but they didn't do this. Other than they compromised to the situation. And although if you can read like the women in the mining activities they are doing in managing the refinery, you can find that the Chinese management's understanding of promoting women's job opportunity still reflects a very separated or a very gender varied ideology. So they are still they emphasis they are offering local women opportunities in working in the refinery. But if you look at these job categories or or their narrations, you can still understand that it is still based on a very typical gender division of labor, and women are still considered to only suitable for work in certain places rather than the traditional men's field. Yeah.
Or perhaps we could reinterpret this, Colin, as the unlike Western-based multinationals, these Chinese multinationals are not really adopting a holier than thou position that this is what should be, and just going with the local gender ideologies. It's something for, it's a good question, and let us think about this, I-Chang, a bit more deeply, whilst you also respond to Sinclair's questions. Sinclair has raised his hand, and I'll let him ask the question, and we can talk about this particular point a bit, bit more intensely between the three of us later. Thanks.
Thanks, I-Chang, really good presentation. I came in a little bit late, so I may have missed something, but I did hear you mention a couple of times the absent-present state. And, it's very clear that you're talking about two absent-present states in terms of the Chinese state and the Papua New Guinea state. And I wonder if you could maybe just elaborate a little bit about how you see the sort of implications of that sort of absent presence in relation to both states, in relation to what you were talking about today.
Yeah. Thank you, Sinclair, for this it's also another very important questions for my thesis. And I think, I mean, it is, first of all, I would say the absent presence of the state is one of the key factor or background factors that pushes me to understand the work relations between Chinese and Papua New Guinean in the refineries as a compromise, which means this situation is different from the work situation within China, where the state plays a very interventionist role in not only managing the work relations with employers and employees, but also in affecting the settings of the company structure or the rules. That's why I think that in Papua New Guinea, the uniqueness of the absent presence of the state becomes the state still plays an important role, but at the level of managing and managing and setting up the institution, while work relations or the operation or the organization of work on the ground still has to be determined or be be settled through the partnership between the foreign company, including the Chinese company and local workers, because two parties, and the absent presence of the Chinese state and the Papua New Guinea state also creates different background that affects the behavior of Chinese employers and Papua New Guinea employees. So it's this kind of yeah, it's this kind of interplay between between two parties, different relationships with the absent presence of the state, and how they how they are able to understand the absent presence of the state, and they learn to negotiate and concede to the other, where the other has something, not has some knowledge or skills that they require in order to move on. Yeah, I would say this. I'm not sure whether I make it clear. Yeah. Because for me, for the Chinese management, it also took some time for them to realize that actually they have to figure out how to keep the operation going on, especially after the construction phase, when the Chinese company MCC becomes primary operator of the mine. Yeah, that's why the absent presence of the Chinese state is also important. And during this period, the Chinese company MCC also realized that the Papua New Guinea state is absent presence in the operation, so they have to work with Papua New Guinea employees in order to manage, ensure that the continuous operation of this mine, because this mine is a reflection of the relationships between Chinese state and Papua New Guinea state. So it's this yeah, this kind of very complicated interplay that pushes me to realize that compromise is very important for two parties to work together and to move on.
There is another hand raised here that I can see. Sulilio.
Suli.
Hi, this is Suli. Thanks, I-Chang, for your wonderful presentation. I have a couple questions for you. So the first one is the methodological one, in which I think, I would like to know more about how you reposition yourself, how you compromise yourself into the society, both in the Chinese company and the local Papua New Guinean society as a foreign researcher, especially there is a political issues between Chinese governments and Taiwanese government, and you being a Taiwanese researcher doing research in or for a Chinese firm, I would like to know more about the methodological and how you reposition you as an ethnographer in this kind of compromising condition for yourself. And the second one is I was wondering, since the presentation of the ethnography of your presentation is very masculinary and it's all about men and all about the labor force. And I was wondering how you, as a man, how you observe. Have you ever had a chance to experience the labor work, refinery? And the last question is there any woman staff working for the like for the Papua New Guinean side or the Chinese company side? Are they as women's society, as a group, do they work like, for example, the Papua New Guinean group. So these are my questions. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I missed a bit like the last sentence during your last questions. So you were talking, there's some disconnection. So
Oh yeah, so I was just wondering, is there any woman worker working for the Chinese firm company or for the and how they react to the very masculinary environment, working environment?
yes, thank you, Suli, for participating in my seminar today. And the first questions is for myself. Actually, yeah, it's also one of the reasons that I found compromise is a very profound or theory or an approach or even a methodology for me to write this thesis, because for myself the process of doing field work, since that I made the decision that I want to study the stories from the both sides. It already shows that compromise it's going to be part of my my field work. And so every time, especially during my field work, the it was the period of the outbreak of the social movement in Hong Kong. so it so it was, and there was also disputes among the Chinese company and the Papua New Guinea national government and provincial government. So these are so similar to my discussion about the absent presence of the state. It was also this kind of environmental situation, or this kind of these higher debates or competitions among these actors pushes me that I have to always be very careful when identifying myself regarding my positionality. So actually, yeah, it's it's like when I introduce myself to Papua New Guinean, I have to I have to I have to tell them that what's the difference between Taiwan and Chinese people. And when I introduce myself to the Chinese employees, although I am a Taiwanese, I still have to be very careful to to introduce myself in a way that I will not trigger the sensitivities between, yeah, But this is not. I'm not saying that I am. I am. I am. I am. I think it's a way for me to be able to put these boundaries between myself and Papua New Guinea interlocutors and Chinese interlocutors, so I can understand what is happening, what is really happening between two sides. Otherwise, the the boundaries will stop me from approaching these people and understanding the stories and the relation building between two parties. And regarding my experiences of the second is yeah, the second one, because I didn't, I was, I was declined of any access to the refinery, so I was not able to, I was able to observe a few workplaces which is close to the road that I am traveling, or the marketplace. But for department, many departments such as the high pressure AC leach, this department or the confined space, I was not able to observe from the from in real person. And finally, women, yeah, actually this will be another chapter, not a chapter. This will be another journal article that I am proposing to write, by focusing on women's role in this male-dominated work environment, because I think actually women plays a very important role in bridging the two sides. Yes, maybe I will also get more insight regarding what are the roles played by women in realizing the compromise between two sides. Then this very hyper masculine two sides, two parties, and actually women is also another key factors that remind me that not indeed local landowners and managers play a very important role in affecting or causing the male-dominated work situation, because according to our interviews, they often complain that these male landowners, they should do more in employing local women. Yeah, but because these managers, either they are these female women workers' husband, or they couldn't they couldn't request them to, because they still have to maintain these relationships with their partners. So actually, they think local landowners should do more rather than rather than what they have been doing. Yeah, contemporary. Thank you.
Thank you. 谢谢.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for the questions and interesting discussion. We are at the end of this session, I-Chang, and we have to unfortunately finish now. And but there has been a lot of comments and appreciation on the chat box, I-Chang, for you. Maybe I'll stay back with you, although we stop recording soon. Anna will do that. Anna was recording. I think she's left. Oh no, she's here. And then